You are listening to the Tuesday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me over at Locked On Senators, and I'm with Mike DiStefano, as always, from Locked On Leafs. And we're here to recap Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final that saw a trend continue. The home team has won every game this series. We'll take a peek at some adjustments that need to be made after a 6-2 victory last night for the Tampa Bay Lightning. We also have the NHL Awards coming up tonight. We'll take a look at the 5 remaining hardwares that need to be handed out and a look at the coaching carousel. Mikey told me by the time we talked this week, 2 coaches would be hired, and it was just that. We've also got some more in the rumor bill, so let's get into all that and more. This is the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.
Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On NHL podcast your first listen on this Tuesday, June 22nd. We got a fantastic show, packed show coming your way. Not only are we going to get into the Stanley Cup Final, the awards, and the coaching carousel, like I mentioned, but Mike and I are also going to draft our top line of free agents to be. We're going to do 2 wingers, a center, 2 defensemen, and a goalie. So stay tuned for all that later on in the show. But Mike, as always, we got to get into the Stanley Cup Final. It's too good of a matchup for it to be a 3-0 series. So great to see we've got at least a 5er, and I sense this one's going to go at least 6, maybe 7.
Well, I think so too. I'd be surprised if Colorado came out and won 3 straight. They'd have to win 2 more at Amalie Arena, which is tough to do, as we saw last night. Tampa Bay just plays different on home ice. They're 7-1 now, I think it is, on home ice. Maybe 8-1 after last night on home ice so far in these playoffs. And Vasilevsky's save percentage, his home and road splits, very different. And that guy's tough to beat. So, yeah, I think this one's going to definitely be going 6 or 7 games, just like we anticipated it. I'll say this, though. I did not give enough credit to the Colorado Avalanche. And the way that they played through the first couple of games, the way that they controlled the series through games 1 and 2, I wasn't expecting it. I didn't think they had it in them to do that, to really break down Vasilevsky the way that they did was something that we haven't actually seen. Like even Toronto here in for the Leafs, they were able to score, 3 goals on the guy a game up until game 6 and game 7. But then you look at what Colorado did. They scored 11 goals through 2 games. Like, that's unheard of in the playoffs for Vasilevsky. So I do got to come out and give a little tip of the cap to the Avs, because they definitely are playing and giving the Avs a little bit more of a run for the money than I thought they would.
Let's dive into the Avalanche, because we did hear it in the comment section. We appreciate everyone for commenting, liking the video, subscribing, whether you hate what we have to say or enjoy it. All that to say, maybe we were a little lopsided giving credit. And maybe it was out of sight, out of mind. The Avalanche had been off for like 10 days, and we had just watched the Tampa Bay Lightning win 4 straight in the conference final. Like, Avalanche fans would be like, yeah, we know we did the same. But going down 2-0 gives it a bit of a sense of comeback feel. So with that to say, the Avalanche are up 2-1 in this series. And I would argue that Nathan MacKinnon hasn't even arrived yet. He's had a couple moments. He's played all right. But if you're an Avalanche fan, you're sitting there going, wow, we're playing this well. We're up 2-1 in the series. We dominated game 2. And Nathan MacKinnon's got what? 2 points in the series so far?
2 helpers. Doesn't even have a goal yet.
Well, there you go. So what happens when he starts finding the back of the net? You got to think his groove's coming. Guy's got 20 points in 17 games through these Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players on both sides. You can make the argument that they haven't quite arrived. I know in yesterday's game, Tampa Bay had, their guys finally show up, the Kucherovs and Stamkos. They're big boys who are shut down completely in games 1 and 2. Yep. I think Kucherov went without a shot attempt in game 2, which is just unreal when you think about it. Those guys showed up in game 3, so they finally woke up, and you saw what that team looks like when their big boys are going. And it's great. So now Colorado's got a counter to get their big boys going. I mean, Landeskog's doing all he can. You've got some other guys. Nichushkin's playing well. But you do eventually got to get some goals out of Nathan MacKinnon. I know that he's a play driver and, he's doing a lot to help this team win. but eventually you got to see pucks go in the back of the net for this guy. So if that can start to happen, Colorado definitely has to be thinking that they're in pretty good shape because, they believe that there's still more within them. They can get more out of some guys, and they're already up 2-1 in this series, and they only need 2 more wins to win themselves a Stanley Cup. So I think that if you're Colorado, you're sitting pretty, and you're still happy about where things are at through 3 games of the Stanley Cup Final.
And even if they can't find a way to win at Amalie Arena, they need 2 more wins, and they will have 2 more games at Ball Arena up in Denver. That building is rocking. I don't understand, and maybe somebody can help me out in the comments, when all the small things tradition started. It's great. I absolutely love how when the music stops, like obviously you got the Sweet Carolines in Fenway, like there's traditions of everyone singing the same song together. But I love how when the music cuts off, when the play starts, they continue, not for a sentence or two. It is like the whole course all over again. It's really fantastic. But I'd love to know, do you know how that started? Like, I just looked up Blink-182 real quick, and they're all from California. I figured maybe it's a hometown thing, but I'd love to know because that's a great tradition.
It is, and I'm not sure where it starts, but like you think about the final lyrics of where it is, right? Turn the lights out, carry me home, right? They're looking to turn the lights out on the road squad. Carry it home, boys. Like that's the words of the song.
There you go.
Is what they're hoping to do in the final 10 minutes.
Final TV timeout. It's where they play it.
Exactly. Carry it home, boys. Let's go. Let's get it rolling. It's great. I love the tradition. I really do. And home ice, Colorado definitely has a bit of an edge when it comes to having home ice advantage, just purely based on the fact that, the altitude is a bit of a slap in the face to all the opponents coming in there for the first time.
I was listening to Pat McAfee show. They had Pat Maroon on, and he said that it's almost more psychological because they have this huge board right where the visiting team walks out on the ice.
Tells you how your
exact altitude.
Exact altitude. Yeah, we had Matt Calvert on Leafs Lunch, and he was talking about that Former Av, exactly. And he's like, it's intimidating from the get-go. Like, they let you know how high up you are. And right away, it kind of goes to your head, and you're like, am I breathing differently right now? Do I feel like I'm 30 pounds heavier right now? Just based on the fact that you just read that. You put it in your mind. So, it is a little bit of a psychology thing. So, the Avs will have 2 more games, up in Denver with that high altitude, which they'll try and put away the Tampa Bay Lightning. But look, I thought that Tampa last night, they made the adjustments necessary to make sure that they got back into this series. Because they would have lost that game 3, curtains, game over. There's no way you're coming back from a 3-0 deficit and winning 4 straight against that Colorado team. It's just not going to happen. But they found a way to slow down that offense. Like, speed was a massive factor in games 1 and 2, and they figured out a way to slow them down. They controlled the neutral zone play a little bit more. And then they were able to take the puck to the net. That was the biggest difference for me for Tampa Bay between games 2 and games 3. The ability for them to take the puck to the crease. You look at the heat maps. Not sure if you're a big heat map guy, Ross, but in game 2, it was so white. It was like literally abominable snowman level whiteness in front of the goal mouth for the Tampa Bay Lightning in game 2. They got nothing in front of Darcy Kemper. Game 3, totally different story. Beat red. Looks like someone put a little bit of ketchup in the middle there of the heat map chart right out in front on the goal mouth. And that was a big difference. There's also 4 little G's incorporated among all those red blotches out in front of the net. And that, to me, was a massive adjustment that allowed Tampa Bay to fight back and get into the series.
Absolutely. And if anyone follows our friend Kristen Shilton, when she was flying into Tampa, there was a storm, thunder, lightning, and you don't mess with Mother Nature. So, I had to have some on Tampa in last night's game. And it's a fantastic series, and I can't wait for it to continue. We're seeing the best on best, truly. Like, watching Cale Makar, when you have a friend who doesn't watch hockey, he's one of the guys where it's like, okay, when you watch your first game, keep your eye on this guy. Because the way he controls the play, he beats guys one-on-one out of the zone like it's a joke. Like, it's almost like he's playing basketball. Like, the way he cuts and jukes around guys, it's truly remarkable to see what is going on for him. But what's going on with Darcy Kemper? Because it felt like after a shutout in game 2, the second goal, unbelievable play by Anthony Cirelli to bring that skate to stick after a great breakout. But then he was trying to cut backhand. He lost control of the puck, but Kemper was right with Cirelli thinking backhand, opens the wickets. It goes 5-0. It felt like from that moment forward, the confidence just waned. The body language wasn't great. He's going to bounce back in game 4?
He's got to. I think he's got to. Like, he's the guy they're going to roll with in game 4. I know Jared Bednarz likes to keep it pretty close, tight to the vest a little bit. And, he even came out after the game and said, look, he wasn't good, but nobody was good. That's just the whole team performance was poor last night. And, Darcy's just in there with the rest of the guys. But I believe that they're still going to ride him for game 4. It would have to be a pretty terrible game out of him for a consecutive one for them to think about going to Pavel Francouz, but I think he'll turn it around. He's had a decent season. The playoffs haven't been as great for him, but ultimately they need him to come out and play a lot better. I think he allowed 2.28 goals above expected in last night's game. You got to have at least average goaltending and play to expectation if you're going to try and win a Stanley Cup. So he's got to be better for them going forward. And I think he will be. And whether or not he's going to be, Andre Vasilevsky level and be an elite goaltender and, give him the type of, Igor Shesterkin level performance, I'm not saying that, but he's at least got to be at expectations when it comes to being a goaltender in the Cup final against the back-to-back Cup champs.
Game 4 goes tomorrow night, Wednesday. If you're listening, it's tonight as we're recording this a little later on Tuesday afternoon here on June 21st. And later tonight, we will have the NHL Awards. There's still the Hart Trophy for League MVP to be handed out, but even more prestigious than that, the Ted Lindsay Award, which is the MVP, but voted on by the players. We've got the Norris, the Vezina, and the Calder Trophy all remaining unhanded out. Well, we do have some ideas. We'll get into that and then touch on the coaching carousel before we get to our drafts. I got a nice little graphic in the works here right now. So while I finish that up, Mikey, you've got a word from one of our favorite sponsors over at Built Bar.
Oh, we certainly do. You know how our friends at Built are always coming out with new amazing flavors. Well, this time Built has truly outdone themselves with the new mud pie flavor. And for the first time ever, Built has introduced a new mud pie flavor with both mud pie bars and the mud pie puff. Not sure what mud pie tastes like? Well, if you're a chocolate fan, you better sit down for this one. The new mud pie bar is rich whipped cream and chocolate mousse smothered in 100% real chocolate and topped with cookies and cream crumble. This thing sounds amazing. You got to try it as soon as possible. You need to hurry because the mud pie bar and the puffs, they're only available for a limited time only. You got to visit built.com to taste the deliciousness for yourself. Not convinced yet? Well, luckily, we saved the best for last. It's actually good for you. No, seriously. All Built products are low calorie, high protein, and low sugar. Mud pie is packed with 16 grams of protein, only 150 calories, and only 8 grams of sugar. It's like your mom baked the most delicious, creamy chocolate mud pie and wrapped it up nice and tight just for you. And like all of our Built bars, they are covered in 100% chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. You are going to love the new Mud Pie Built Bar and Built Puffs, whether you need a snack for your workout or a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and it tastes even better than any candy bar out on the market. Chocolate mousse, whipped cream, cookies and cream crumbled. Stop drooling, Ross. Get to Built.com to order a box of Mud Pie bars and puffs now. You will not regret it. Go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 50% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKED15 for 50% off at Built.com.
Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, why don't you go check out our friends Chris and Kyle over at Locked On Avalanche and Adam over at Locked On Lightning. You can find me at Locked On Senators 5 days a week. We are deep into draft coverage season. We are doing a top 64 countdown of draft prospects. You can find us on YouTube there. And Mike DiStefano over at Locked On Leafs with David Morisuti. Those guys are working out some trade proposal because when you're with the Leafs, Mikey, you always got to dance around that cap number, something I'm not too familiar with Ottawa. We're focused on draft and develop method. So whoever you're cheering for, there's a podcast for you Monday through Friday right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Mikey, which way do you want to go with this? The awards first? Do you want to touch on coaches or should we get right to the draft?
Let's touch on the awards really quickly. I think we can get to that because for the most part, I think there's a couple that are pretty much gimmies that we can hand out, but there's a couple of conversations to be had, I believe. And look, at Locked On Leafs, the last couple of days we've been chatting about it. I know today's episode went pretty hard for making the case for Austin Matthews of potentially winning the Hart, maybe even the Ted Lindsay. Michael Bunting has an opportunity to win himself a Calder Trophy. So I think there's some discussions to be had. So why don't we get into it? I heard you give a little when I brought that up. What do you think? You don't think Matthews is deserving of the MVP this year?
No, but I do think he's deserving of the Rocket Richard, which he's already got that hardware. So it's not like he's going home empty-handed, Mikey. But when you look at who the best player in the National Hockey League is, it's hard to not look at Connor McDavid right away.
Yeah, but
He is
that's
just
the Ted
so
Lindsay,
good.
buddy. But that's the Ted Lindsay. Those are two different awards. Best and most valuable. They're two totally different awards. You know that. So
Right, but I mean, I think most Leaf fans on
it.
any given Sunday would tell you that Mitch Marner is just as good as Leon Draisaitl. So I feel like that debate that used to be more prevalent, where it's like, well, Connor McDavid's got this guy riding shotgun. Well, Mitch Marner had just as fantastic a season as Leon Draisaitl. Of course, he's more of a playmaker, so the goals jump out at Leon Draisaitl getting over 50 again. But I think that you just have to give it what was the points gap between them at the top of the standings?
Well, Matthews eclipsed 100, and obviously McDavid led the league in scoring, so there's quite a points gap. But to me,
123. So he
Yeah.
had him beat by not a math guy, 17 points.
But to me, the most difficult thing in the NHL, according to Sheldon Keefe, and I'm sure you could ask anybody in the NHL, they tell you the same. The most difficult thing to do in the NHL is score goals. And the point of the game of hockey is to score more goals than the other. And when you are a guy like Austin Matthews, who does that more than anybody else in the NHL, that is pretty darn valuable to me. So for me, a guy who for the first time in a decade scored 60 goals, far more than anybody else who he's up against in the MVP race, which is Connor McDavid and Igor Shesterkin, which obviously Shesterkin a goalie. That's not comparable. But to me, it's Austin Matthews, though. And it's not just for the goal scoring. The improvements that he made in his two-way game, for me, is really what separates the bunch and what allows him to kind of take that next step. Not that McDavid's a poor player defensively, but the elevation in his game this year for Austin Matthews and the way that we saw that team break team records this season, mainly because of what that guy did. Remember, this dude scored 50 goals in 50 games? That hadn't been done in almost 30 years.
And there's an award for it. It's called the Rocket Richard. Most goals.
I know, but honestly, I believe that he is going to take home the Hart Trophy. The Ted Lindsay will probably go to Connor McDavid because that's voted upon by the peers. And I think that's just an automatic. They write out their ballot. They're going to write Connor McDavid every single day of the week. They're not even going to think twice about it and actually give some reasons why. They're just going to write his name on the ballot card. But for MVP, I really think that Austin Matthews is deserving of the award and probably wins it too. We could put a little wager on this, Rossi.
You think Austin Matthews wins the MVP?
I think he wins the Hart Trophy. I think he wins the Hart tonight.
Oh, we'll discuss that off air, what we're going to wager on this. But I like it. I like my odds here. Isn't a part of the MVP making your teammates better as well? I guess you could argue that he does, but I look at him as a guy who's tied for fourth on his team in assists. A guy who, I mean, yeah, the other guy's probably got some.
Because he's the guy burying the puck. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the goals, it's not even that much of a gap here. We got a much bigger gap here in points than we do in goals. If you're just relying on goals, I just point you in the direction of the Rocket Richard. And then why isn't Chris Kreider in the mix then? Guy had 52 tucks.
How about I point you in the direction of 5-on-5 points, where Connor McDavid is sitting there tied with Michael Bunting in points at 5-on-5, while Austin Matthews is up there just a couple shy of Johnny Gaudreau for second in the NHL.
Well, Johnny Gaudreau is another story. He's a guy who I look at as a guy who probably should have been in lead. He's probably finishing fourth because we got to give some love, and we have all year to Igor Shesterkin, the third nominee. He's not going to win it, but he certainly had the type of season that would warrant being in the discussion. It's going to be interesting then, because I know you got the Leafs angle all covered. You host Leafs lunch, so you can pull out the 5-on-5. And with Bunting, I just say, yeah, not only is he playing with Matthews, but I'd argue that Mitch Marner is just as good of a player. And that pains me to say because I'm not a huge fan of his. But when you look at 97 points for Mitch Marner himself, too, Draisaitl right up there. They both have a guy riding shotgun, and you're going to do that. It's a team sport. That's why earlier on, remember, I was pointing at Kirill Kaprizov because who's the next highest scorer on Minnesota? You got to go down like 30 points. This guy's just head and shoulders above everybody. So
Roman Josi, I'm surprised Roman Josi didn't get more love. He is third on the Ted Lindsay ballot, funny enough, but didn't make his way into the Hart Trophy ballot, but you look at
they had a pair of 40 goal scorers down there though in Nashville with Duchesne and Philip Forsberg as well.
Is Duchesne had 40 this year?
Yeah, I know Duchesne had 43 and 43, 86 points in 78 games. Huge bounce back for him.
Wow.
You might get a laugh out of this real quick because obviously it doesn't take much to get the rumor mill going at this time of year, especially for a team that doesn't make the playoffs.
Don't tell me.
Philip Forsberg, I get a DM on Send Central on Twitter. Philip Forsberg is on my flight on the way to Ottawa. So, of course, I'm like, what? He's going to Ottawa? And then he posts, because last week, Borowiecki, who's from Ottawa and now plays in Nashville with him, posted a photo, downtown Ottawa. It's beautiful. And Philip Forsberg replies saying, I didn't even know Ottawa has a downtown because they go right from the airport out to the middle of nowhere. So then Philip Forsberg posts on his Instagram story, it's real and it's beautiful. Location tag, downtown Ottawa. Everyone's just saying, oh, he's coming. Turns out he's at Ryan Spooner's wedding. So congratulations to Ryan Spooner for getting married. Guy I grew up playing against, absolute stud. But back to
his wife. She played. She was a backup goalie for Western University women's hockey team. Yeah, she was a goaltender when I used to call Western games back in my university days. Yeah, so congratulations to both Peyton and Ryan.
And congrats to us for getting the engagement up on a slow weekend on Send Central. But no, I'm not breaking any news that Philip Forsberg's coming to Ottawa. We got so far off the awards right there. I just got awards for biggest scoop of the weekend. So how about that? Unanimous. No, in all seriousness, though, it's close, but I got to go. It's almost that thing where to beat the champ, you have to really do it. And Connor McDavid's the reigning MVP. You got to really impress. And sure, 60 goals hasn't been done in a long time, but if he had been second or third in points as well, then I'd probably give it to him as the tie break. But when you're 17 points shy and McDavid was 8 points shy of anybody else. To me, that's deserving of the MVP. They're both deserving, but guess what? Matthew's already got his hardware.
We'll see what happens.
We certainly will. Why don't we go to the Norris? Because we just brought up Roman Josi. So it's basically a 2-horse race. I mean, all credit to Victor Hedman as well, a great defenseman, but Roman Josi, Cale Makar. How do you handicap this one? Because they play such different stuff. They play on such different teams in terms of talent. We saw that when they went head-to-head in the first round. Yeah. But what Roman Josi did to me this year was ridiculous. He had a 17-game point streak at one point.
36 points in that point streak.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. He was literally operating at a 2-point-per-game pace during that point. It was ridiculous. The guy 96 points as a defenseman. And the fact that he might not win it is kind of insane because Makar also had 86 himself. And
Makar had 28 goals, dude.
I had 28 talks, man, for this guy. It's going to be a great race. Honestly, it's a flip of the coin. Whoever wins it, I'm not going to complain. I don't know who, I don't know who I would vote for. I may, thinking back on it, it was really the end of the year where Josi made that big push, and that's when the voting is done, right? True. It's done before the playoffs. So whatever you think about what Cale Makar has elevated his game to the playoffs, your recency bias may be leaking in a little bit, but it doesn't matter because the votes were already done before the playoffs started at the end of the regular season. And at that time, if I recall correctly, a lot of love for Roman Josi because that was when he was really hot and just leading this Nashville team across the finish line to get into the playoffs and keep them in the hunt there. So I almost feel like maybe based on when the voting was done that Roman Josi may end up with it. But if it's Cale Makar, it's also well-deserving. You can't go wrong with either of those two guys.
So it turned out it was I miscalculated that. It was in a 13-game stretch. He had another point streak just before the 2 games.
34 points?
28 points in 13 games. But if I go back in a 32-game stretch where he only didn't have a point in 3 games, he had 51 points in 32 games as a defenseman and on an okay team, a decent team.
It's not bad.
It's not bad at all. But I think the tiebreaker, and you can talk. They're both good defensively. I don't think there's any huge holes in their game there.
Defensively.
I look at 6-game winning goals from Cale Makar, and I'm just like, this guy. You take it to a whole other level. 3 of them came in 3-on-3 overtimes. So take with that what you will. Roman Josi gets the edge in points by 10 and even strength points by 7. But to me, it's extremely close. I would almost argue Roman Josi has a better case for the MVP than he does for the Norris.
That's why he's nominated for the Ted Lindsay, funny enough, with Matthews and McDavid. But the only other thing that I'll say when it comes to all of these awards is, aside from the Ted Lindsay, they're all voted upon by the writers, the Professional Hockey Writers Association.
Hey, do you go through and check after? Whenever I see, like, how they post like everyone who get a vote?
Unless there's a hero.
No, it'll be like Luke Glendening gets a third place Selke vote. I'm like, I'm gonna go find out who gave him that vote.
Yeah, like unless there's a hero, like if somehow, let's say Josi gets a vote for the Ted Lindsay, like I'll go, okay, what Nashville scribe was a hero and did that one, or like
first place type thing.
The Vezina, like it should be a unanimous. Igor Shesterkin should win the Vezina unanimously. Right. But it's not going to be the case. You're going to have someone out of Nashville or someone out of Calgary who's going to vote for their guy in Markstrom or Soros, and it's going to be why? Why are you doing it?
And it's like, dude, he's not sharing the award with you. Like, you get nothing out of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do your job.
Well, it cost Jerome McGinley. Was it Jerome? Yeah, it cost Jerome McGinley a champion an MVP years ago. Remember?
Against Theodore.
Yeah, so there was guys in Montreal who purposely didn't put Jerome on their ballot, and based on the point system, it allowed Theodore to get the MVP over Jerome McGinley, which is just ridiculous. A guy who's clearly one of the top two, and you left him off your ballot, so he got 0 points accrued, and it ended up costing him a championship. So you always have those heroes. So I'll go and check and see who those guys are just for funsies. But
it's fun that it's out in the open though now. I like it.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I always go see how my boy Boo Boo's doing, so I can try to roast him there from Post Media in Ottawa if you get that reference. But anyways, we are taking our time with these awards. We still have that free agent frenzy to get to. So just give me some winners here with the rest of them. The Calder, I know you love your boy Bunting. You got the stats up your yin-yang about him, but it's not even close. It has to be Maurice.
Oh, hold on. You got to give...
It's not even close.
Hold on. It is definitely close. No. And if Michael Bunting was 21 years old...
He ain't.
He'd be
when he was 21, he was playing the AHL.
But it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter.
He played in the AHL when he was 22 and 23. And then in 24, he played, one less game than would have qualified him?
It doesn't matter. Mo Seider's played 4 years of pro hockey himself, too. People like to forget that, but he's been playing pro hockey in Europe since the kid was like 16 years old, 17 years old, and he played a season in the AHL last year. So he's not new to pro hockey himself either, I may add. But when it comes to Michael Bunting, I said this stat earlier. To me, it's kind of the King Daddy Topper mic drop. Michael Bunting has just as many points as Connor McDavid at 5-on-5, and if you put it to per 60 metrics, more points per 60 than Connor McDavid at 5-on-5. How can you not give that man respect and say that he probably should be the Calder Trophy frontrunner, but unfortunately because of his age, and some people are going to factor that in, which they shouldn't because he's eligible, and that should be that, it's probably going to end up going to Mo Seider, who had a terrific season himself, but I still believe that Michael Bunting, if they were the same age, it probably would be going to him based on how they played this season.
Yeah, I mean, fair. I just can't get over the age difference and how many 21-year-old defensemen. We just talked about Cale Makar. To me, he's like the only guy at 21 who came in and just dominated as a defenseman.
So
I'm not saying
a big reason why age gets brought up too is because you start to fill your body out as you get older, right? Like a 25-year-old man is a lot more filled out than a 21-year-old man. Mo Seider is a much bigger human being than Michael Bunting is. So if you want to factor in like size and age and put those two together, it still bugs me that people really are looking at that and they're discounting Michael Bunting because of the age, given that he's really not like
even besides the age. To me, it's the fact he played 21 games last year. If it was an 82 game season rather than 56, he's not even eligible for the Calder this year.
Well, it depends on if he would have played more games or not, but it doesn't matter. It's eligibility. Yeah, the guy's eligible. Eligible is eligible, and it really shouldn't factor.
He was playing pro hockey in 2015. Let's just put it that way. So you say that Mo's played for 4 years, while Bunting's played for 8.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's a long time.
He hasn't played for 8 years.
2015. We're in 2022. Quick math: 7.
7 years. Learn your math skills.
Springfield Falcons. That team doesn't even exist anymore.
I mean, he's been playing pro hockey since 2017. Mo Seider.
Yeah, I mean, Bunting had already played 130 games of pro by then. But even still, I get it. You're going to go to bat for your guy. But when you see the votes come out, Seider's winning this award. There's no question in my mind.
I think he will. I think he will. And I've hedged my bet. I've got both on both those guys, money on both those guys. So it doesn't matter. I'm still going to win. But I believe that Seider will probably take it home. But I just think there needs to be a little bit more respect put on Michael Bunting in the season that guy had. That's all. So I got to go to bat for him as much as I possibly can.
All right, you 416 guys can stick together. I think Zegras finishes in second place voting as well. I don't know if he deserves it as much, but I think that the voters will see the highlight reel plays, the plays that make Sports Center, and I think he could get some of those votes. So I know Mikey's going to be scrubbing through every PWHA ballot, and anyone who's in the TSN compound who didn't have Michael Bunting at 1, keep your eye out for Al's brother strolling the halls with his elbows out next week. All that to say, we got to run through this because we do want to get to this free agent draft, Mikey. And Ted Lindsay, you going to argue with me it's Connor McDavid?
No, I'll give Ted Lindsay to McDavid.
And the Vezina, we already said Shesterkin in an absolute landslide.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to touch on the coaching carousel that did have 2 stops, including an extremely fun one in Philadelphia. And then we've got our draft. We're going to run through some of the best free agents hitting the market. All that coming up here on Locked On NHL. All right, you're listening to Locked On NHL. I'm Ross Levitan over at Locked On Senators. You can follow Mike DiStefano as well at Locked On Leafs. We've got your team every day, no matter whether you like the Calgary Flames, the Los Angeles Kings, the Florida Panthers, or the 2 teams in the Stanley Cup Final. Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Lightning, both doing numbers wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. We're going to be your home for draft coverage coming up, but the Stanley Cup Final is still ongoing. Mikey, Nazem Kadri skated this morning with the stick before practice. Could he be one of our players picked in our mock draft coming up about the top free agents? But first, your thoughts. The 2 coaches hired. We had Bruce Cassidy and Penn going to Vegas last week on this show. So let's touch more on Torts. Was that a surprise for you? We knew he wanted to get back in the game. That guy was only on TV to keep himself relevant for the job he ultimately got, because we know he doesn't like the media.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He's not a big media fan. I wonder how much of a fan he's going to be of Gritty in Philadelphia also. That's going to be
we're going to get a Craig McTavish situation, where he pulled the tongue out from Harvey Hound.
Yeah. That's we're going to see literally. Who did we ask the other day? Who I don't know. I was on TSN and I asked someone Craig Button. I said, who do you think would win the fight, Gritty or John Tortorella? He said Gritty, but I'm thinking Tort's got that old man crank. He'll just pop him once and he'll 100%. Be snoozing for days. But I was less surprised about this one than most, I think. It sounds like a lot of people are a little surprised about it. But when I look back to John Tortorella and especially his time with the Columbus Blue Jackets, it's a team that didn't have a whole lot, but he got a lot out of them. You know, it's a team that he's a coach that traditionally gets the most out of his players. And for an ownership and a franchise that, for whatever reason, still expects themselves to be competitive and to compete, I think John Tortorella is probably the perfect guy to try and squeeze as much as possible over what's a pretty bleak team, I would say. There's not much talent on that roster, to be quite honest with you. Top tier talent at the very least. So John Tortorella, in that aspect, does fit what the organization wants to do. Whether or not it'll actually work out, that's a bit of a different conversation. But it makes sense in terms of the messaging coming from ownership that they bring in John Tortorella based on what he's been able to do in his career.
They're one of many teams that are going to have extremely interesting off seasons coming up because, like you said, this was a team that doesn't want to rebuild, but they simply weren't good enough last year. They're drafting 5th overall. They had 2 losing streaks of more than 10 games. They really need some serious work this offseason. You can go follow Rachel Donner and my boy, Russ Cohen, who we just had on Locked On Senators. We're doing a full first-round mock draft. Russ is also a contributor at Elite Prospects, so they got a lot of great draft stuff going on over at Locked On Flyers as well. Mike, man, we got to get into this because there's some players I really want to touch on. Are we just doing unrestricted free agents? We should clarify that.
Yes.
Only unrestricted free agents. So don't pound the table when Matthew Tkachuk, Kevin Fiala, we've got Pierre-Luc Dubois, Patrick Laine. There's a lot of great RFAs out there, but we are doing our draft of 2 defensemen, and we're not going to be sticklers. We're not saying 1 left shot and 1 right shot defenseman. 2 defensemen, 2 wingers, a centerman, and a goalie. And we're each going to do a draft. Let's do snake style, Mikey. I'll let you decide whether you want the first overall pick or if you'd prefer to do second and third.
Ooh, you're putting me in a real tough spot here, pal. You know what? I'll give you the first overall pick.
I think it's a very obvious choice here as well. With the first overall pick, I was going to say but he ain't got no team affiliation anymore. I'm taking Johnny Gaudreau, 115-point guy. He's going to make so much money. And we just finished talking about Philly. That's a hometown type thing. He's from New Jersey. That could be a fit. We know he's buddies with Kevin Hayes. They had a ton of success together in college. Could they find a way to make the money work? That's a great question. But I'm taking Johnny Gaudreau with my first pick in our free agent mock draft.
Yeah, it's a pretty good pick there.
Would he have been your first pick?
He would have been my first pick. Yeah, he would have been my first pick. But I wanted to have 2 and 3 so that I could try and strengthen it a little bit there. And I'm gonna go with Nazem Kadri with my next pick. I mean, the season that guy has had, 87 points in 71 games through the regular season, and was just a monster in the playoffs up until he got injured. It's so unfortunate that he hasn't been able to play throughout this Cup final, but hopefully he can get back. You noted that he was skating today, did an optional skate with the crew. He's got his stick in hand, so we'll see if he can gut through it and eventually get into this series. But I'm going to pick him with my number 1 choice going into in this free agent draft. And then my second pick, Chris Letang, defenseman from the Pittsburgh Penguins. This guy's, he's a little bit older, but he's still got it, man. Like, this dude still has it, I think. And he'll probably end up back in Pittsburgh, I would think. But 68 points this year at 35 years old. He's going to be a beauty for whichever squad picks him up. Toronto would be nice. Just saying. Toronto would be nice.
He'd be a great fit anywhere you're going to look here. A guy we already spoke about earlier on in this show. I have to go that direction too. I'm taking my wingers first and second. Philip Forsberg coming off a 40-goal season. Now, was this a career year that was helped with the playmaking ability from Roman Josi, or is this the type of performance that we can expect for the next few years? He's 28 years old, and I don't know if you remember, but after Game 4, that loss on home ice against Colorado, he did a bit of a victory lap where he's looking up at the crowd. So I don't know if he's going to be back in Nashville, and he will certainly make whatever team has him. He's a first power play unit guy and a top 6 winger. So I got Philip Forsberg rounding out my wingers. So I got Johnny Gaudreau and Philip Forsberg here. And again, so you take a guy who you think is going to stay in Pittsburgh. I'm going to take a guy who I think is going to stay in Pittsburgh, Evgeny Malkin. He's still got gas in the tank, dude. He still has it. And I think that a new location, if it does come to that, is just going to rejuvenate him and make him feel like he's 10 years younger, light on his feet. So I'm going with Evgeny Malkin here with my third pick.
It's a good pick. It's definitely a good pick. I considered him or Kadri, but I think Kadri going forward probably has a little bit more juice, being that he's 5 years younger than Gino. But I mean, yeah, Gino's definitely a solid pick there. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Pittsburgh. Like, I don't know, man. I know we saw Brian Rust take less to probably try and make sure that they get these guys. But remember that report about maybe about 6 weeks ago that there was some funny business going on over there and some players weren't happy.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. I'm really curious to see how Pittsburgh's offseason comes to fruition. All right, so what do I got? I got a centerman and a defenseman, so I need a couple of wingers here. Do I go off the board? Am I ready to go off the board quite yet? No, I'm gonna make sure I lock up the goaltending position, because I think there's really only one half decent goalie in the starters market. I shouldn't say that. There's you know what?
There's a couple of goalies. Now I look at it again, but there's no bona fide goaltender, which is why I'm not going to go there. But I need UFAs, right? Because you're looking at the Jake Ottinger, what kind of contract. They've got some decisions to make in Dallas, by the way. Him and Jason Robertson both need new deals. But again, UFA draft, you're looking goalies.
Claude Giroux.
You're taking Giroux.
Taking Claude Giroux.
Yep, as a right wing.
Yeah, as a right winger. We're going to go with Claude Giroux. Is there another defenseman I could take here? Trying to see. I'm going to stay far away from Anthony DeAngelo. As great as a player. John Klingberg.
Okay.
John Klingberg is going to be my other player. Johnny Klingberg.
Klingberg at 7. So right now you're missing a left wing and a goalie. You're missing a left wing and a goalie, and I need 2 defensemen and a goalie. So this is going to get intriguing here. And since you left it for me, I got to take it. I love what I saw from him in a smaller sample size. Maybe a little bit of risk here, but I'm taking Ville Husso from St. Louis. 25-7-2 record this year, a .919 save percentage. He's a big goalie who moves well in the crease, and he's going to shine when he doesn't have that shadow of Jordan Binnington and the 2019 Cup champion right behind him. So I'm taking Ville Husso here with my next pick, which is 8th overall. I'm taking Ville Husso in our free agent draft. And now I got a couple defensemen to take a peek at here. You mentioned D'Angelo. Of course, there's the off-ice antics or, fan reaction as well of what could happen if you bring him into the fold. A lot of defensemen on the market this offseason are seemingly on the older side when we're looking at UFAs. Now, here's one that I'm going to ask your permission to select. And you already have both your defensemen, so it's not like you're trying to angle here. Can I take Ethan Bear? Because he's an RFA, but Carolina gave him permission to speak to other teams as though he's not going to get qualified.
He's not a free agent. He's not a free agent. That'd be a trade. It's not going to be a free
agent.
Well,
unless they just don't even qualify him, like we saw that happen with Ottawa a couple of years ago with Anthony Duclair.
I'm not giving you permission for Ethan Bear. I mean, okay, sure, fine. You can have
him. No.
I don't know.
I'm going a different direction then, and this might be a little off the board, but I love this pick. He's just one of those steady guys who you pair with an elite defenseman, and he just goes about his business, and you just don't worry about him. I'm taking Jan Rutta, soon to be 3-time Cup champ. I think he's going to get a nice little payday. He might get a David Savard type contract. I wouldn't even be surprised.
Is that locked in? That's a locked in pick?
That's a locked in pick.
I thought you were going to go with Josh Manson. Based on your lead up, thought it was going to be Josh Manson.
You know what's funny, though? I still have one more pick, and it's a defenseman, so don't tempt me.
Oh, it's true. I thought you were done already with your D-man because I would have gone Manson over Ruta all day long, pal. So that probably is your last pick. I got my final 2 picks here, and I need a goaltender and a winger. So I guess I'll go Darcy Kemper. I gotta go Darcy Kemper as my goaltender. I know he's coming off a pretty crap game the other night against Tampa Bay Lightning in the Cup Final, but I mean the guy had a great regular season, had a .921 save percentage, 37 win season. He still is a great goalie, and he's taken them this far. Like I know Francouz also got in there and won him a bunch of games, but he still is a pretty good goalie, and I'm kind of throwing health out the window, I suppose, and hoping he remains healthy. But to me, he's probably the number 1 goalie on the open market, in my opinion. So I'm going to take Darcy Kemper with my goaltending position. And then what do I need? A winger?
You need you need 1 winger.
All right. Do you want me to go off the board pick, or do I go with a solid selection? What do you think?
I try to be solid, just for fun.
Evander Kane.
Okay.
Evander Kane.
We're at that part of the draft, eh?
The selection. Well, I'm debating between 2 people. 3 people. Okay. So how about this? I'll let you pick which player you want me to have on my team because I'm having a tough time deciding. And since you already took your wingers, it doesn't matter. Evander Kane, Val Nichushkin, what we've seen out of this guy in the Stanley Cup playoffs in the final, or Andrew Kopp, who I think is just a beautician. But to me, Evander Kane, if he's got everything going and he's right off the ice and there's no issues there and he can just go and play hockey 82 games and have no, nothing impeding that, he's one of the best wingers in hockey. Yeah. Most productive wingers in hockey, I think we can at least say. So I think I got to go with Evander Kane as my pick there.
All right. Well, there's Mike's entire team. He's got Kane, Kadri, Giroux, Klingberg, Letang, and Darcy Kemper. The number in bracket there is the pick.
Yeah, really missed the G in Klingberg, but that's okay.
Oh, nice. Anyways, you're clinging on to that little detail when in reality, it's the larger picture. And with that, you take a guy whose off-ice antics are a little questionable. I'll do the same. I look at the on-ice. I got to take Tony DeAngelo. The skill is ridiculous. He's an automatic first power play guy.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, Carolina had no issue with him this year. He seemed like he fit in the dressing room.
Stay off social media, Tony, and things should be.
And watch your tone.
Okay.
Watch your Tony. Watch your Tony.
Yeah,
so I've got Malkin in between Goudreau and Forsberg, Jan Ruta and Tony DeAngelo on defense, and Ville Husso in goal. So have your say in the comments. Which team do you think wins a best-of-7 series between these two lines? They might get tired by the end of it, but let's go. Just put them head-to-head in a simulation. So that was fun. I like that. And it also kind of highlights a few of the free agents to be for the teams who are not competing for the Stanley Cup. And hey, even the ones that are, because we know that Colorado is going to have some decisions to make. A name you didn't even mention. How about Andre Burakovsky as well? A guy who's a free agent.
Here's one I didn't realize he was even a free agent this year. I'm just looking at the list now. David Perron is a free agent.
I think he said that he's basically just going to stay in St. Louis.
Probably, but it's just an interesting. Yeah. Ryan Strome had a pretty good year with the Rangers, couple of good seasons. Vinny Trocheck is a solid player. Andre Palat.
Yes.
Potentially could be.
Wow, I'm surprised neither of us. I mean, you only have 4 wingers total, and I'd say Goudreau, Forsberg, Giroux, like Kane Palat could probably be a balancing act there. I mean, what do you have? 13 goals in 14 games, but I'm a huge Andre Palat guy. I think he's a fantastic player. So I also think that he probably takes less to stay in Tampa rather than go somewhere that's unknown. He's got a pretty good seat there playing on a line with Stamkos and Kucherov more times than not. Speaking of Kucherov, as we're recording right now, John Cooper just spoke at the podium. Not sure what his status is for tomorrow night. Took a tough hit late in that game, and we'll see, because that'd be a huge loss for him. And he's also gunning for history. He's gunning to become one of only 3 players to have 3 straight postseasons with 30 or more points.
My goodness.
Yeah, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux. Ever heard of those guys?
Once or twice. Yeah, yesterday he broke the record for 25 plus points in 3 straight, and now he's trying to hit 30, which again is just to ever be mentioned with players like that is got to be special. I can only imagine what it'd be like to be named the same breath of those players. Hopefully he is healthy, because the Tampa Bay Lightning are a better team, a more exciting team when that guy's definitely in the fold. So we'll see, though. I'm excited, man. Hopefully
it's going to be fun, man.
Out of this.
Hey, we're going to have a Stanley Cup champion by the next time we speak, no matter whether it's is it, or did I just go
One's game 7.
They play every other day from now on. So game 4, game 5, game 6, it would be the day of game 7 should the series go that long. Until then, we would appreciate if you make another Locked On show your second listen of the day, whether it's Locked On Senators, Locked On Leafs, Locked On Lightning, Locked On Avalanche. We got 35 shows on the NHL channel here on Locked On, and don't think we're going anywhere after the final, Mikey. You got the free agency locked down. We got the draft locked down. It's going to be a very fun offseason. I was listening to Elliot Friedman speak earlier today. He says this could be, and we hear it all the time, but this could be the year we see a ton of big name players move. But with the cap staying flat again, who knows? But we're going to be here for it every step of the way at Locked On NHL. Any final words there, Mike? That was a fun show.
Yeah, no, just excited. Hopefully we get a 7-gamer out of Colorado and Tampa, and you'll be paying me once Austin Matthews takes home the Hart Trophy tonight, pal.
All right, we will figure out what we're putting on it, and we'll let you know next week. For Mike DiStefano, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.